Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.
It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show most likely to be spotted naked in the woods. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight is more teddy bear than werewolf. Welcome, Puck.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
All right, and we are joined tonight by the leader of Pet Play Pride, Texas. Welcome, Shade Wolf.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tonight we are going to be carefree and wild, showing our cat class and our cat style. So give us a call with your stories at 512-991-9242 or tiny.cc/callsex, because the show is coming right now.
All right, well, that sound means we are starting this week the way we start every week with what's turning us on this week. Puck, buddy, 2 in a row. What's got you turned on?
It is, and for the second week in a row, I'm going to talk about how much of a bop our entry songs are, because actually this week what's turning me on is oral sex, and not oral as in O-R-A-L sex, but oral A-U-R-A-L, because I think one of the things that we often neglected is how important sound can be for setting a scene.
Mm-hmm.
This could be any number of things. It could be sexy or dirty talk, or the right music, or the right ambiance, or if you're into it, the wrong ambiance. Last week I talked about erotic fiction, and there's a lovely intersection between erotic fiction and oral sex, because it can be very arousing to hear a story being told or to be the one telling a story. There's a number of podcasts out there where people are reading erotic fiction, and it's a fun thing to do with a partner or 2 or 3. Look into it.
Yeah, no, well said. I do think that audio-only pornography, if we want to frame it that way, or whatever else, is something that not enough people are exploring, and there's so much opportunity to see and do and participate in fantasy that you wouldn't necessarily explore in the same ways through like traditional like Pornhub pornography. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Shade, super excited to have you tonight. Really excited for our conversation. But before we do, what's got you amped up right now?
So actually, I also love the audio. I listen to erotic books on Audible a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I've been really visual lately. I've been playing Sims 4 with the Wicked Whims mod. And my sim is aspiring to be a porn star, and it just kind of takes me back to my sex worker days and like all the good memories I had. So I'm kind of like nostalgic for that right now.
Love it. Yeah. I am never not amazed by what video games can do for us.
Right?
See, I only played Sims 4 for like a hot minute when it first came out. I had no idea it's gotten as big as it has. So. That's
I'm
awesome.
a little
Lord,
addicted.
I didn't know that we were already on Sims 4. I feel like Sims 2 came out like 15 minutes ago. So, yeah, that says something about where I'm at in life. But let's jump into it. For folks who are curious or didn't quite catch it, we are going to be talking about pet play sort of writ large tonight and figuring out what exactly that refers to, what it is and what it isn't. And Shade, I guess we'll start there. I mean, disclaimers out of the way. Is pet play in any way tied to bestiality?
Not at all. Or zoophilia. Neither one. So pet play is 100% human pets. People who like to dress up as animals or behave as animals. No bio animals are part of pet play. Not at all. We do not support that.
Bio animals is definitely a term worth breaking down and keeping in your back pocket. I'm going to hold on to that one. And I want to be very mindful to put that question and those categories on a totally different shelf than this question that I'm asking. But as we're getting into sort of the taxonomy of pet play, is this at all tied to furry fandom or to like leather culture and dom sub dynamics and pup play? I mean, help me break these things down a little bit.
Okay. So there is some gray area in there with the furries. Some pet players like me, I think pet play is an umbrella term. So having any of the pups, kittens, ponies, or furries, I think that's all part of the pet play umbrella. But then you also have people who, or pets or furries, who prefer that they're their own thing, that they don't exist in the same umbrella. So it's a really gray area for a lot of people. Um, Pet Play Pride Texas specifically does the umbrella. We include everybody. If we have a party, a munch, a mosh, we want all the furries and we want all the pets and all the handlers and everybody to come and join us and support that community.
Yeah. Well, so how does this tie into like leather culture and pup play and that sort of dom sub dynamic? Does that fall under this umbrella?
It does. And actually, most of the pet play, I believe, stems historically from leather.
Mm-hmm.
And that it started with like leather pigs and then leather pups, and then branching out from that into just pup play and kitten play and pony plays. It's still very relevant to the leather world, very relevant. They hold competitions all over the country. It's actually amazing to watch.
Well, and I suppose on like the other side of that dial, for me at least, would be that more like tender, soft dom, caregiver, little type dynamic. Does that have a part to play here too?
Sometimes, again, that's more of a gray area. As a kitten myself, I do kind of go into a kitten space, which does make me behave more like a little, but I don't identify as a little at all. So, and then I'm also a dominant person if I'm not in my pet space. So it does have some of that, but
Mm-hmm.
you really have handlers and masters and owners, and they want to scratch your ears and rub your belly and feed you treats.
Yeah, and I'll just say to the audience here, like we are throwing a lot of words around and we are sort of poking around at the edges and talking about what this is and what it isn't. We're gonna break all of this down a little bit further. So to that end, what sort of maybe like broad categories are we talking about here? I mean, to start with, I heard you mention kittens and ponies and puppies and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Like
Yes,
what are
all of
we
them.
looking at here?
All of them. And as far as pet play, you don't get too many of those fantasy animals that you do with furries or the combination of animals. You do get some different types. Like I'm a kitten. I have my little kitty ears and my bell, and I love it. And then I also have a mask that was made for me
Mm-hmm.
because there's not a whole lot of options for cat masks like there are for pup masks or pony masks. Um, but with pup play, you get like their hoods and you have mittens, or they almost look like boxing gloves so they can be on their knuckles as they move, and tails. And there's different kinds of tails. This is a little bunny tail. It's actually a butt plug bunny tail.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a tie-on tail. So that
And
just
Very
that
like
just
nice.
goes to the back of your pants or
Mhm,
whatever else you might be wearing, yeah?
correct. So there's opportunity for any type of pet within pet play to find those types of gear.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, going back to like the furry side, you have people who dress up as dragons or um those really fun like colorful bears. I don't know what they call themselves,
Sure.
but I
I
love
imagine
them.
there are unicorns and all sorts of different
Yes,
ideas.
like all those. And then you also have a primal subsect as well, where you find your like big cats and your wolves. So you have your lions who like to roar and wrestle and do body play type things. So all of that is in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it varies by the person, by the scene, by the situation, and everything else. But these different types of animals, is there a different mindset, a different flavor? Is it significant if somebody chooses to be a dragon versus a kitten? Is that something that we should be understanding?
There are huge differences. For me, I love ponies. They are my favorite out there. Their gear is so gorgeous. The latex, the hooves, they're amazing. If I could choose to be a pet, I'd be a pony. But I don't identify with their behavior. I don't identify with that animal myself. I
Hmm.
identify with as a kitten. And recently, since I've created Pet Play Pride, now have been more in spotlight and talking um about all of these things with different communities and different groups, I've become more extroverted, and so I've been leaning more towards like a fox. So your mentality on it can change, but you also don't identify as everything else.
Hmm.
So one thing that I want to talk about, and when you talk about like so much variety in there is like the level of immersion that you can have. Like some, you've shown us some costume elements, and whatnot, but like what's the range here for acceptability? Like as a CGL dom, I've had littles who very much like to dress up, and some who don't, but still have animalistic tendencies. So what's the range that your group has in it?
So gear is not required. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
You can have zero gear and still show up to a party and walk on all fours and bark at somebody, and we'll understand that you're a pup. It's that simple. But then you also
It's a
have
valid form of expression no matter how
Mhm,
you wear it.
absolutely. And then you have the people who go head to toe, and I'm kind of someone in the middle. I like to wear like a cute outfit with my hair, my ears, and my tail and my bells, but I don't do the full latex bodysuit that some people see, like Catwoman. I don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go that far into it. I do have a story about immersion from a pony friend of mine. If we have a moment to do that.
Yeah, let's dive in. I am fascinated by all of the different just wrinkles to this.
So I have a pony friend in Austin, and they do the full latex. They have a custom horse hood, all the things, even the anatomy, all the things. And when they get into their horse mode, they like to pull carts and pull people around in carts. They neigh. They're gorgeous. There was a day that they were doing a photo shoot with his handler, and he was so immersed out in this field where there was trees and the grass and other horses, and just kind of like being in that, he started mimicking other horse behaviors without really thinking about it, nuzzling the trees and stuff like that, and stamping his hoof. And they just kind of watched him do this
Hmm.
because he just got that immersed into it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that notion, and we'll talk a little bit about that like pet space mindset and everything here in just a moment. But I guess I'm curious if pet space, headspace, or costuming or anything else is sort of like a necessary ingredient. Is there anything that is sort of is vital to playing in this space, or how would you even like draw boundaries or borders around the things we're talking about?
So I really haven't run into too many issues with something along the lines of someone not being um in like pet. I know if you're really curious about it, a lot of people will come and watch some pets play or come ask questions, and you generally find out fairly quickly whether or not you align with the behavior or not, just in my experience.
Hmm.
Um so I don't see a lot of people just attempting to do it and not be in the pet space and just
Sure. So that's maybe the like the one defining element is sort of that mindset or that mentality.
Yes, I think
Well,
so.
I guess with that in mind, I mean, we're 15 minutes into this and we haven't talked at all about sex. I think because of the show that we're doing, people are making some assumptions, but in the broadest possible terms, you've talked about people being outside and sort of like immersed in a particular mindset. You've talked about people coming to parties and interacting with each other in groups. What are we talking about here? What does pet play look like out in the wild? Like, what are some of the various forms, or what is something that you could look up and see and go, oh, that's pet play. They are pet playing. Where are the boundaries there?
So the that the sex in pet play is a gray area. Most things you'll find online aren't going to be sexual because pet play is not really inherently sexual.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really a lot of that handler dynamic or master owner pet dynamic where you have a bond and they treat you the way you want to be treated in this pet space and they take care of you in that space. But as far as drawing like limits, I don't know where I would draw that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be different for everybody. It's for me, my pet space is usually I want to be comforted and cuddled and just lay around. But to someone else or to like the pups, they like to bark and play and run at each other. So if you're Googling pet play, I would probably actually put Pride with that. Because you see them a lot at Pride. They'll be in the um, crowd. Words, sorry. They'll be in the crowd, like in their like hoods, and they just sit there and wag and they bark and they. It's like bringing your dog to the parade.
So seeing that this is, and since you bring that up, since there's a good chance if you go to a pride parade or a pride festival that you will find people engaging in pet play. What's the etiquette here? Like you see someone who is engaging in pet play, how do you approach them? How do you how does any of that work?
So I say approach them like you would any animal if you're educated in approaching animals, where you offer an extended hand of friendship or get on their level and do that. And if they come up to you, then they've given consent for you to touch them or talk to them or whatever. But if they don't, if they sit back, if they growl, then you want to leave them alone.
The
And that's if
notion's
you.
kind of to like maintain the immersion and
Mhm,
to meet them in that sort of headspace.
mhm.
Is that sort of how you mean it?
Yes. And that's if you see them alone. If you see them with a handler, you always want to talk to their handler first, like you would with any bio animal that you see on the street. You would talk to the owner before you just run up and start playing all over their dog. At least
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. At least hopefully.
Yeah, fair.
But you can actually talk to any pet player just normally, and they will either find ways to affirm or deny your questions in their pet space. And if they can't, then they will break their pet space to let you know that, hey, that's not okay, or yes, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
We do really well on our side of things, but the best is to not just immediately go up and touch or pull or anything, because there's still consent there. You're still a human being, even if you're in ears.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about this during break, and it bears speaking out about it that the outfit it should be any accessory should be treated as an extension of the person, right? And in the case of one of the accessories you showed, if you handle that too roughly, you could actually cause some serious harm and pain to a person. If you have no idea how it's being worn. So yeah, if that gets pulled or if that gets manipulated the wrong way, that could really really be dangerous. So treat any accessories as if it's an extension of the person and assume that has just as much, you need just as much consent to touch any of that or to interact with any of that as their actual body.
Yeah, it's a generally good idea to not just go up and tug on anybody's tail under any circumstances, but in particular, if that tail is connected to somebody's rectum, you could be doing some damage, whether that's like actual pain or just a lot of social embarrassment.
Yes, definitely.
We've been talking about these sort of like group setting type situations. What would a pet play scene look like for somebody who is perhaps a little bit newer or is sort of exploring this space and is working in a like a just couple dynamic? You know, two folks at home who are curious and exploring pet space. What would a afternoon look like?
So I think that would depend on the pet.
Sure.
I'm not sure what a bunny would do. That's not my bunny tail. It's my best friend's bunny tail. So they would do something completely different than what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And then a pup would do something completely different from what I would do. If you're at home exploring pup play, because for some reason I have more experience with people exploring pup play than anything else, you would walk on your fours, drink out of a dog bowl, or eat your
Mm-hmm.
food out of a dog bowl. Same thing with being a kitten. I drink or eat out of a bowl or a plate. Sometimes if you have a fun owner, you can make treats in the shape of animal treats.
Wow.
And I do this for my parties. Whenever I throw moshes, I make treats for everybody so they can be given treats while they're playing. And then I lost my train of
No,
thought.
I'm just completely, because the way I would have answered that would have been different. Like where like if I, and I've been in relationships before with people who never really explored a pet side until then they just realize, you know, just by the dynamics of the relationship, there's a lot there that kind of mirrors how a pet owner relationship would normally work. Does somebody really like affection? Does somebody really like their hair touched, or do they like to be groomed, or do they like to be dressed up and shown up, or little things like that? Do they like affection? Do they like treats? And then to start from that and say, you know what, these are some slightly animalistic tendencies. Don't be afraid to don't just, wow, hey, don't hold back, let it out. You know, if you are feeling this way, go ahead. This is going to be a safe space for you. Let's just see where this goes and what happens. And it's nice to see like S tier pet play over there with compared to the kind of entry level stuff that I usually help people with, where it's you know, we're not ready for outfits and costumes yet. We're just getting used to the idea that it's okay to be animalistic. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like the drinking water out of the bowl is usually a fairly easy step to be animalistic without it being too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
You just drinking out of a
To
water
ease into
bowl.
that space,
Yeah.
sure.
yeah, well,
Yeah, well, I mean,
there's
maybe it goes without saying, but we're talking about pet play. We're talking about play. You know, I mean, if there's one message that I really like to stress to everybody, it's that sex is just play. It's just people goofing off. And that doesn't mean that it isn't important. That doesn't mean that it's trivial. I mean, these are incredibly powerful things, but that sense of immersion, that sense of maybe even silliness, that sense of like really going for it, particularly when you feel safe, whether that is in a private environment or one that's maybe a little bit more open. The whole notion here is that consenting adults would be able to connect and have fun and release and explore their emotions and their mentality. I mean, there's really no wrong way, I suppose, so long as you are, you know, being respectful and ethical and your boundaries around consent and safety and these sorts of ideas. But I suppose the messier and the sillier you can feel you can comfortably be, the better. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
no, and I think you talked about this in a past episode too. Plug, plenty of episodes to watch of this, but that sometimes taking on a role other than you helps you express parts of yourself that that might be difficult otherwise. So, um, when you say it is play, let it be play. Then sometimes, as long as you're both still having fun with it, there's no right or wrong here. There's no one right kind of outfit, as Shade was talking about. There's no boundaries as far as how much you have to be immersed in it. Find where you are with your partners, and have fun.
Yeah. Well, with that, Puck, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to cover, but otherwise, I say we take a look at the phones.
Yeah, no, and yeah, absolutely. We're covering everything really quickly here because we're
Sure.
limited on time. But if you did have any questions, now's the time to do it. Give us a call here. Phone number, once again, is right there on the screen, 512-991-9242. Give us a call, whether it's about this topic, and we'll address whatever you can, or anything else you'd like to talk about. We do have a couple of calls on the line. Were we ready to get to those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. First, we have Jared, him from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Wants to talk about poly relationships, and looks like something that kind of backfired a little bit. How you doing, Jared?
Hello. Yeah. First of all, it was a very interesting discussion. I didn't know a lot about pet play, so it was very interesting to hear and learn some dynamics.
Yeah, glad you're here.
So yeah, to give a little backstory, my friend, he helped me when I came out as bisexual, and we've kind of helped each other emotionally throughout the years. And a few years back, I helped him kind of reconcile that he was polyamorous. And I helped him research. I helped him just come to terms. I helped him join the community and all that. Through the use of Reddit, dating apps, FetLife, all that kind of stuff. And
good on you.
And actually, through that process, I actually learned a lot about communication that helped in my mono relationship. So that's a cool side effect that came out of that. But I am in a mono relationship with my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, my friend has started preaching a little bit about how poly is superior, and started inserting himself a little bit into my and my girlfriend's relationship. And I don't know how to handle that, because I don't want to invalidate him, because he is who he is, but I'm also who I am. I know that I prefer this relationship dynamic. So I don't know how to kind of discourage him, or no, that might not be the right word, but
yeah.
You want to
it's a
keep
bad
him
look.
like, you don't want to discourage him from being poly. You just want to set the boundaries within your own relationship. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like it's none of his business,
Right?
kind of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
something we talk about every so often in this sphere is, like, we will talk about the angry atheist phase.
Mhm.
I would like to introduce the topic of the idea of the happy poly phase, where you get introduced to it, and it's amazing. And you see the world in a completely different way that you've never seen it before, and you just want to tell the world about it. And I went through that, and I apologize on behalf of anybody that did not want to hear me through my happy poly phase. But there is that point, and this doesn't excuse it at all. It doesn't say that he should, have a right to step in your relationship, but that might be somewhere where he's at. And the most important lesson they teach you in any poly circles is that boundaries are still ridiculously important. They're the most important thing, even in poly relationships. And you are setting that boundary for yourself with your relationship and with him. So that is absolutely valid, and that's something that he's going to figure out in poly spaces. But if you've been helping him out through it, then it's going to be a wonderful lesson to come from you, that just because he's getting a lot out of being poly, it's not for everyone, and everybody still defines for themselves what kind of relationship they want to have.
Mhm.
What am I missing, Christy?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and jump in, Jared, and just say that, there's a reason why there's such a unpleasant stereotype around folks who are poly, or who swing, or ethical non-monogamy, and these different kinds of things, of those folks turning into vampires and trying to, like, convert people over to the idea. And I hate that stereotype. I hate when people applied it to me. I also recognize that it makes a certain kind of sense. And I think Puck hit the nail on the head. This is for most people sort of like that zealot phase at the very beginning where you get super excited about an idea. He probably had to work really hard against some of his own beliefs, or at least some of his own like cultural assumptions. And after pushing and pushing and pushing, finally those things gave way, and he's got all of this momentum pushing him forward still. I'd like to believe that with a little bit of time and a little bit of patience on your part, that he will go through this phase and get to a point where he's able to better recognize those boundaries. But if he is pushing too hard, I think you have all the permission in the world to tell him to cut it the fuck out. I mean, it's really not okay to prey on people or to pressure people in that way.
Yeah, that was really a big part of it. Was me. I've always been accepting of poly, but it's not ever been something I've been into. So it took a few months of us just having drinks and talking over drinks and hanging out and looking things up. And kind of, I've always never thought of it as unnatural, but he did. He came from a religious background as much as I did. But I never thought about comparing it to the angry atheist phase. Because when you're going through that phase, it's all you can bring up in conversation. And that's kind of what I feel like he's going through right now. He's preaching it from the mountaintops.
Yeah, and there's some things that get talked about in poly circles that sometimes they're super helpful, but they can also be super toxic. Like one of them is everyone's a little poly, right? And you know, we hear that some, and most people kind of understand. Okay, I guess I can see where you're coming from. And then some people take it to a far extreme where they believe that they can talk anyone into, and then since they'd opened them up, they almost have a right or an obligation to get other people to do this. And that's when it starts to get into the okay, this you need to back off. And again, it's your relationship and it's your boundaries. And at a certain, you know, it's great to treat it with kindness at first, but at some point, if it goes too far, don't be afraid to actually put that foot down and say, no, this is not going to happen. So,
yeah, I don't want to overstate it, but it feels like it's on the same kind of continuum as that notion of like, oh yeah, she thinks she's a lesbian. Well, she just hasn't met the right guy, and I'll convert her. Like it's got that same kind of energy. And that's pretty disgusting thought process. So, you know, I don't mean to criticize your friend, but those things, while they're not the same, they're kind of in the same book or at the same playbook. So I do think you have all the permission in the world to set and maintain those boundaries aggressively if you need to.
Yeah. It wasn't really. I didn't mind it, but when he started talking to my partner about it, and it made her uncomfortable, and so that was kind of where it started to become a problem. Mm-hmm. And it just, when you start involving yourself, like he's my friend, and I think she more or less just tolerates him. But when you start trying to involve, I don't think he ever tried to involve her in his relationship. That came out wrong. I think he was trying to convince both of us at the same time when neither of us wanted that. Mm-hmm. And when he started talking to her, it kind of made it more uncomfortable. It made both of us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it kind of, so. Yeah,
I might give him a short leash. I might say, okay, if this is just a phase, we're going to love you through it. But, you know, you've got a couple 6 months and then you need to just completely cut that shit out. And if you cross too many lines, too many boundaries, then you're just donezo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's trying to figure out the right words, because this is my best friend and we've been friends for years, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy he found something that he loves and makes him happy, but he has to learn that not everyone's of the same sexuality or relationship.
Well, if it helps at all, I'm willing to be the bad guy. You're totally welcome to show him this clip, and I'll just say, Jared's friend, we love you. We're so glad that you have found some liberation and that you are enjoying yourself, but knock it the fuck off. Find people that are excited to have what you're selling, because it doesn't sound like Jared and his partner fall into that category. We're happy, you're happy. You just be happy without crossing anybody else's boundaries. Hope that helps, Jared.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get behind that,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right.
Jared, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
guys.
calling us. And definitely, if
Yeah,
you'd
absolutely.
like to, we'll give you a couple of ways to keep in touch with us, or you can call in another time and give us an update and let us know how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Jared. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Do we have time for one more call? I'd like to take
Yeah,
one
let's
more.
let's sneak in another one.
Okay. I'd like to talk to Hornet, pronouncer it's from Germany. Hi, Hornet. Good to talk to you again.
Hi. I also say hi to Shade Wolf. Hi. Nice to talk to you.
So you had a question about pride.
I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
I have two questions actually. Originally, I even had three, but I kind of forgot about the third one. So the first question is possibly something that has been asked before, but I wouldn't know about it because I couldn't look it up really quick before the lines opened. That was, how do you guys feel about the whole kind of controversial discussion about whether kink is appropriate at Pride or not? Because I myself am a little bit unsure about it, and I don't know entirely.
Well, if it
which way to
informs your
decide.
thoughts at all, I'll say it's not so much a controversy as it is a intentional media smear campaign invented by a bunch of dickheads hanging out together in some of the dark corners of the internet. Not to cut the conversation short, I'll definitely let Shade and Puck respond in their own way, but I'll simply say that this has never been an issue until somebody decided that, ooh, what a great way to really fuck up Pride and to create a bunch of drama and commotion by making it seem as if by allowing kink in Pride spaces that we were going to like alienate or offend children. And then that talking point got sort of amplified and sort of started a pseudo controversy. But I honestly don't believe that anybody has ever been meaningfully hurt by the so-called problem that was suddenly looked to be solved over this summer. And to me, it's a whole bunch of silliness. But Puck and Shade, would y'all like to weigh in on that at all?
I've actually never been to a Pride. This is I'm admitting my failing right now. So anything anything you're talking about, like, yeah, Christy, I followed a little bit of that, and how a lot of the questions about what's appropriate at Pride has to do more with misconceptions about what's going on than what's actually going on. But Shade's going to be the real expert here, so I'm going to turn the camera right over to.
Yeah, it was mostly a question for her. So
yeah. Absolutely, Shade. What do you got?
So I don't know if I'd be the expert on Pride, but when it comes to just like pet play in general, it's considered a kink, and if pets are allowed at Pride, so I don't understand why there'd be an issue there, because that's still a form of kink. I think it's the same misconception about whatever people think is happening at Pride and how people behave versus what's actually going on at Pride.
Yeah, because I actually I've been to only one Pride in my life before, and I personally didn't see anyone who was like wearing anything or behaving in any way that I personally would associate to kinks in some way. But I've heard a lot of people putting pet play like at the forefront for the most part, because some people like to wear their puppy gear at Pride, which I personally don't find all that offensive. And it's not like they have a full scene going on there. But at the same time, I also kind of can understand people being like, yeah, they are a little bit concerned with the appropriate environment for like young kids that are attempting Pride and stuff. And I'm not entirely sure, because I personally I'm gonna be real. I don't know a lot of history. I'm not that smart in terms of history, but
The
I
real
don't
quick
know
primer
if,
is to say that the first
Pride has been
Pride
there for
Parade.
so long.
Yeah, I'm sorry to speak over you, Hornet, but I'll just say your very, very quick and dirty introduction to the history of Pride is that the first Pride Parade was a riot. Stonewall was a riot. This was never intended to be a just gentle, cute kind of space. Obviously, our relationship culturally as a country and as a world, our relationship with homosexuality has changed dramatically since Marsha P. Johnson was throwing bricks and these kinds of things. But I do think that this is a fake controversy. There is not a huge problem of parents taking young children to pride parades and then men in leather gear acting out these like graphic sexual scenes and creating this like completely unfamily friendly environment. That just isn't happening. Sure, there are different types of appropriateness, and pride is a big word that covers a lot of different things. The example I like to use, like myself, growing up with a lot of family from Louisiana and participating in Mardi Gras, there are the Mardi Gras parades at 9 a.m. that are completely family friendly. It's a huge event in Brazil as well as in America surrounding Lent, the season of Lent in the Catholic calendar. But just to say, it's totally common and acceptable for there to be a family friendly type event, and also for there to be a like late night bacchanali and dirty, sexy, fun kind of event. And those two things are separate, and they always have been. The idea that somebody just simply wearing their leather gear to a pride parade is somehow problematic is silly on its face. And this is a talking point that has been intentionally generated to divide our community. And frankly, I really resent it. Hornet, I appreciate you asking the question very much. I appreciate your curiosity and your eagerness to be on the right side of things here. But I want to suggest to you that you and so many other people are asking that question because of an intentional misinformation campaign. And that is incredibly aggravating to me.
I understand that completely, but that is exactly why I was calling in, because I personally don't know a lot of context. So I wanted to be sure I had multiple sources to gain my information from, because I personally really hate the idea of being in an echo chamber. And because I know that the internet is full of bullshit, I thought I might as well ask into sexuality, since there's usually someone who knows more about it than I do. But that's actually
the Kink
really
community has always been welcome at Pride and should always be welcome at Pride. And I suppose I'll leave my thoughts there.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Hornet, for calling again.
Had another...
we have time very quickly, very quick.
I also had another question for the two pet play experts here, because I'm kind of interested in pet play myself. I just don't know a lot about it either. And that is, more exotic kinds of pets also like represented in that community? Like, do people also stick to more exotic animals?
It is whatever you would like to make it out to be. And even if you want to play a traditional kitten but take it to a different place, it's what you want to turn it into, and it's what you and your partner want to turn it into. There's no right or wrong. There's no you have to be a certain way to be a certain animal. There's no you have to be a certain animal. Make something up. It doesn't really matter. Find where you find the happiness, find what speaks to you, and then scream it out loud. So Shade, what's your take on that?
I completely agree. You can go as far with it as you want, exotic as you want. You want to be a kitten, but you want to be an ocelot, which is a tiny, cute little leopard kitten. Go do that. You want to be unicorn, be unicorn. I know someone who's a shark. It's go as far out as you want. It's whatever you align with.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling again. Keep engaging with us, Hornet.
No
wonderful.
problem, and I will love to do that. I speak to you next week.
Have a good night.
Bye.
You take care.
Oh,
Well,
we have
good
so much
time.
fun here.
Good questions. Yeah, no question. Yeah, while we've got a break in the action, let's take a moment to check out what's been going on around the rest of the ACA.
So the new thing is jump humping, which is a soak, but you get your friend to jump on the bed while you're doing it so that they're the ones doing the motion.
So as not to offend God.
Whether you think chocolate tastes
but-
good because you
Yeah.
like the taste of chocolate, or chocolate
be-
tastes good because the chocolate man is the creator of the universe.
Instead,
like-
you have to like chocolate because it's the best.
I hear it's a really tiny holiday, anyways. But
Well, it's colder, so there's bound to be some shrinkage.
If he's given us something interesting to grab onto with our little teeths, let's see where it takes us. Okay?
That's true. And before anybody says anything about the little teeths, Johnny still has his baby teeth, and we're not going to shame him for that.
I don't want to beat up on anybody unnecessarily, especially if their view of it is, well, it's atheism with some extra steps. Okay. Everything is
that's kinda
atheism
mind-blowing.
with some extra steps.
Put the spirit can on. Thank you for that. Okay, we're gonna put our hands on here. Was that? Oh, there's the hand. Sorry, it takes a little bit to get over there. Come on, I gotta put my hand on here. There we go. There we go. Okay.
I'll just say for podcast listeners, that particular moment has a visual element that is absolutely worth your time to check out.
Yeah, and we know that there are a lot of people out there. The thousands of our viewers watch this on listen to it on podcast or just have this in the background. No, this is the one time you're going to want check this out. Check this. Yeah, wow, that was a fun episode to be a part of. I was honored to be part of the Driscoll episode.
Yeah.
Plug, watch Truth Wanted every Friday night, 7:00 Central.
Watch Truth Wanted. It's a good message. It's a good message. But let's dive back into it a little bit. You talked about the idea of immersion, and when I know we've sort of thrown around the word pet space, but how would you describe it? Can you kind of walk us through what that idea is referring to?
So I feel like it's just like any other space that you have in the lifestyle. If you're little or if you have subspace or dom space, but you go into feeling more connected with the animal that you are and start kind of thinking that way. And it can be really therapeutic because you do have that aspect of being someone or something different. And so it also can go as deep as you want or as light as you want as well, where you can be completely submerged and think you're a cat for your entire life, or you can have just a little bit of it where you just want to be scratched and pet, and that's all you want. It can be either one.
Yeah, that kind of headspace or like that phenomenology has always been really interesting to me. Puck and I had a conversation a while back where we got into a conversation about caregiver little relationships, and we sort of discussed that specific mindset around little space. Is there a meaningful distinction here? I heard you kind of compare it to that dom space or to little space, but for folks who maybe aren't in the lifestyle or maybe haven't spent a lot of time in role play or in these different things, is there something distinct about it, or anything that you might, any breadcrumbs that you might leave for somebody who's maybe looking to find themselves there?
I feel like it can be distinct. I am not an age player, so even though as a kitten I feel as close as I possibly would feel to being little, I still don't identify as a little or an age player at that point. I'm just a kitten.
Yeah, I think there's at least a little bit of an element of like I knows it when I sees it kind of thing. Like everybody's experience of it is a little bit different and unique. And I know that this is kind of conversational space that can feel a little uncomfortable for atheists, as we are talking about sort of mental phenomena and these like different mindsets and things like that. Puck, I know you've got a lot more experience in little space, or at least in sort of that direction of things. What would you maybe add to what Shay's saying?
That everybody's going to come to a different idea of how they enter their headspace. Like there are some people who, okay, they know that there's going to be an event coming up this weekend or a meetup coming up this weekend, so they know that they can get into the right headspace for that. There are some people, they'll slip in and out of it several times in a day. They'll do different things about that, or signal their intention to their partner in different ways. Just in case Hornet's still listening, there is no one perfect way to do this, right? Sometimes you will just find yourself slipping into little space or dom space or pet space or anything, and that's not right or wrong. You don't have to be able to turn it on a switch and be able to perform for events. Sometimes it just, like, you want to be there for the scene, you want to be ready for it, and it's just not there, and that's okay too. Everybody's going to enter and exit pet space and little space in a different way. Shade, what am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything when it comes to that, because the preparation for pet space can definitely take, or any space can take time, knowing that you have an event or a party coming up, doing different things to get you into those spaces. Like I said, you don't have to have gear or anything like that to be a pet. I personally feel better when I have my kitty cat contacts in and wearing my bell and have my tail on me. It helps me get into the pet space. But I didn't always have to have that, and I don't always need it to get into pet space, but I usually have to prepare myself to be in that mindset. I'm not someone who usually slips in and out of it. But I do know some littles who do slip in and out of it. You can be at the store and all they see is a squishmallow, and all of a sudden you have a child.
That's so specific and yet 100% accurate and like broadly true. The squishmallow phenomena is something we could do an entire episode on. But I guess I'll just very quickly mention that Puck, you brought up erotic audio and different things there. I think that erotic audio, particularly like meditation and hypnosis, is a really powerful tool here for empowering people to maybe change their consciousness to an extent, and to maybe dive into some of these things. But beyond that, Shade, you talked about sort of the different types of animals and how that sort of informs the dynamic. I'm sure that there are, sweet little kitty cats that just like to have their ears scritched. And then there are maybe bratty, if that's an appropriate term, or maybe unsubmissive dogs and these different sorts of things. What are some of those different flavors or roles that people might experience in pet space?
So you do meet non-domesticated animals, someone who doesn't have an owner, doesn't want to have an owner. There are some pups that do like to be aggressive. They'll make their stance and they'll bark and they'll growl. And then of course you have the cats who sometimes want to be feisty and they hiss and swipe and want to bite. All those same things. It's kind of like actually having your dynamic with a bio animal sometimes, where you get annoyed by your pet if you're a handler, because all they want is attention and attention and attention. And
yeah, I'll actually maybe ask the two of you, because perhaps this is a really strange metaphor, but in my mind it totally clicks that there is a distinction between, and yet a very bizarre, like postmodern similarity between playing guitar and playing Guitar Hero, or like Rock Band, or one of those old school video games. It's a different skill set, it's a different activity, and yet it kind of feels like it's tickling the same part of my brain. Does that feel true here? Is that an accurate way of describing it for either of y'all?
I do both Rock Band and play guitar, so I get where you're coming from with that similarity, where it's like, sure, yeah, it's like two different sides of the same coin, where it's like it feels like you're scratching two different itches, but kind of the same way. That's fun. No, like my main interest with all this is like, we talk about there's individuals doing their thing, but for me it's like the partnership. That's what's fascinating to me. And the different ways that a dynamic will grow, like the way that a relationship with a pet will start on day one could be hugely different from what it looks like just a few weeks later, right? So more of my interest, like how do you develop that? Shane, how do you work with another person to get into the same space that you're in?
So it will depend on the type of pet you are, of course. Going back to like a pup, if a pup meets someone who's interested in being their handler and they're interested in having them as a handler back, you do a lot of things like puppy training, where you walk them on a leash, you use commands, if you want them to sit and you treat them, you build that relationship and that bond with their mindset, their pet space, as you are building yours as a handler.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned hypnosis. Y'all have both mentioned different like outfits or accessories. What kinds of activities help to bring out this mindset? Like, what are some ways for folks who are perhaps new to it in particular to access this or to start to imagine themselves in these sorts of roles?
I would say definitely taking stances like positions, being on all fours, walking on all fours, vocalizing in that pet. Although I don't know what a fox sounds like, and I know several foxes.
What does the fox say? Sorry,
So I know several foxes.
We're gonna get it in chat for that one, I'm sure.
And so it's something like that, just small, simple steps that you can do to help get you there. Because like I said, if you don't have gear, you don't know if you're ready to have that commitment to the lifestyle, because gear can definitely cost a lot. So just those little things that you can do, walking on all fours, vocalizing, meowing or barking or neighing, or if you're a pig, oinking, things like that. And then also doing what you want to be doing. If you're a dog and you want to be loved on and you want to go rub on your owner's legs and get scritches, then do that. And that kind of stuff starts putting you into that space if you haven't been there before.
And since my mindset about when talking about this is almost always about relationships, my big thing is don't be afraid to talk about it, right? Like if you want to be more in pet spaces and you got something out of it the last time, like the first time it starts to slip a little bit into that, talk about it, say, you know what, I actually really enjoyed that. What can we do to bring this out? Or maybe the opposite, this was too far. I'm not ready to be that immersive into it yet. But talking to your partner, you're not going to get very far with your partner unless there's some good communication both ways and some good understandings made as to where you want to take this next step in the relationship.
Absolutely, communication is definitely key with it, regardless. And yeah, going too far, you might not want to go out the very next day and buy a kennel and lock your person in a kennel and be like, you wanted to be a dog. You have some of those conversations where their interests lie and how far they want to take the pet play. If they want it to be something that they do at home all the time, or if they just want to go out to parties and experience it with other people, it's very important to have those conversations.
Yeah, for some people it'll be once every rare occasion we'll go to an event and we'll participate. For some people, there's a little bit of the dynamic that exists almost their entire relationship. So like one of my previous partners, just get a pack of Skittles and they are instantly in pet space, and that could happen like at any time. It's just interesting that you talk more from an individual perspective, and I think more about relationships and working together with other people, getting into it. I'm learning a lot today. This is really awesome.
Yeah, ultimately, I guess my curiosity is what is the value of this kind of play? I mean, it's fun, it's silly, But ultimately, is there anything special about having a partner or a community or even just time to yourself to connect with these like animal instincts? What is that experience like, or what does that do for you?
I actually really enjoy the community and going out into the community and interacting. I love going to moshes and having all the puppies like bark at me and I hiss at them and we interact with each other in that kind of way. Or if I am friends with several pups and I can bat at their tails because they wiggle around a whole lot and it's super fun to just play with. And I forgot the question.
It's about well, maybe my answer will jog yours. That for me, engaging in these spaces is more of a means to an end. Because as a service top, I want to make my sub feel as validated as possible, regardless of what it is that they want to explore. And by helping them feel validated about something that maybe they're very embarrassed about, they haven't told anybody, they don't feel like they can reveal this part of themselves. By having a safe place to explore that, and by having somebody say, hey, that's cool. Not only is that cool, let me help you with it. It helps to open up other parts of the relationship also. So for me, it's a means to an end thing. It's a means of building more of a relationship by starting with this as a base. And that's what I personally get out of being in pet space. Did that help you a little bit, Shane?
A little bit. So
Okay.
I'm not really someone with like an owner or handler, and I've never really been that way. So I am not super great at talking about it as far as the relationship parts of that. I am married and have been with my partner for several years, and he knew about my pet stuff and we do pet stuff together, but he's still not like I don't have an owner. I'm an independent animal. So I talk a lot about the independent side of it.
Do any cats have owners? I mean, that feels like a question worth asking.
I know maybe one kitten has like an owner.
I mean, if you're drawn towards that cluster of personality traits, it's just worth asking.
Yeah. No, not really. We're not really owned very, very well. But that's why I like the community aspect of it, because being as independent as I am as a pet, going to the community and the events and stuff like that and having other people treat me that way helps me be in my mind space and like get into that. And since I don't have that relationship aspect with it.
Well,
I'm
Puck,
so
did you
glad
have
we're having
anything
this
you
because
wanted
like
to add
last time.
before-
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there was anything else you wanted to touch on before we return to the calls.
Just that I'm so glad that we were having someone like the last time we talked about this, Christy. I could only really kind of offer a hypothetical on the perspective of the other side. So it's really great that to have a person who's willing to be a spokesperson for their beliefs. So thank you very much for coming out here. But yeah, we do have a couple of good calls on the line. You want to get right to them?
Yeah, who you got?
Let's do it. Okay, we have Alex from New York, him, who is curious about the psychology behind what gets us into our kinks. Hi, Alex.
Hi. You probably remember me from the hang up yesterday. Hey.
Yeah, well, sure. What's on your mind? You're interested in, I guess, sort of the roots of these things, or how did you want to frame that?
Well, let me just put it this way. I thought it was still kind of interesting, like, because coincidentally, part of me, like, I guess, sorry, I'm getting my tongue tied by this. I guess what I'm like trying to get at is that, I think like we probably can all agree that there's always been like some kind of psychology of something in our lives or things about us that basically has led us to get into these kinks or these interests and stuff. And I think for like what's interesting with me is that I am a dominant in BDSM. I actually would probably be like a master with in pet play, which I'm actually have some interest in pet play and stuff like that. Heck, my porno game has some pet play in it, so there's something to look forward to for those that are into pet play. But in any case, I feel like basically the biggest reason I think that drives me to be into being a dominant is basically actually falls under my disorder, as in I am autistic, Asperger's syndrome and everything. And throughout my life, my biggest trouble in my life is definitely the lack of control over things. Like, I need a level of control in my life because when something I find uncomfortable happens, it's very clear that I need to get out of there. I need to move to a comfortable position. I need to get into a comfort zone and everything. If I don't have that level of control, then of course what leads up is things get discomfort and build up and make me uncomfortable into the situation. And, you know, when you're also a kid, you're forced into things like school and stuff like that. So there was like years when you're young where you're basically not allowed to control what you can do. And it just added to stressful issues and everything. And so what I feel like what leads up to me is that what drives me into this ideal lifestyle of being a dom, a master and everything is just that it just brings out like this great feeling of like a less concern of like, there's actually a level of like, I actually have a big amount of control in the relationship, even though technically the person who has the most control is the submissive, you know, just say the safe word and basically, you know, whatever we're doing stops. But I think it's just that there's this level of the person knows that I want to be in the position of control, and they like that. There's that level of comfort that I can be in that relationship. Yeah. There's that comfort of just that, you know, if what I say, my partner will probably not have a problem with it because that's what they want. They want that me to tell them that, hey, we're leaving. I need to get out of here. There's that level of comfort. And I think there's also the things that lead up to things such as pet play, as in, as with my disorder and everything, I cannot handle the responsibilities of being a pet owner. I can't really handle the ideas of, because if a dog barks randomly, the loud noises can really bother me. There's the issues about, you know, the sort of responsibilities. And there's even the things like, you know, taking care of certain aspects, such as, you know, cleaning up after them. So there's that level of that comfort of, again, that the partner is filling in that role of what a pet kind of brings to a master, which is like, you know, the comfort, the companionship and everything. But you also know that that person is fully aware of that, you know, they're not like you know, a dog might not fully understand you, but, you know, as your partner, they pretty much will fully understand you perfectly well. So you know that, hey, I know I have these issues, I know these, so they can fully fit the role that you want in a way. If they are
by degrees, I mean, as much as any two people can ever truly understand one another, I kind of see that as being on a really broad spectrum. But I guess I have an idea of sort of where you're going with this, Alex, but I didn't know if you maybe had a specific question that I could perhaps help to illuminate or jump in towards.
Oh, right. Well, my question is just that because I give like my expression, I'm kind of also, you know, curious about just have like these kind of thoughts with with your sexual interests and stuff have crossed your mind and make you think, oh, that's probably why I am into this stuff, of why I am into why I'm into like pet play and stuff like that.
I mean, sure, there's a reason. Right? Like there's always a reason. That's just the way human beings work. Even when your thoughts and emotions are completely irrational and are not at all grounded in like actual reality, there's still a reason. They're still valid and they're coming from somewhere, whether that place makes sense or not. When we're talking about sexuality, yeah, we can draw some pretty straight lines some of the time. We can imagine that if you have a particular interest in X, it might be because you were short of Y, either growing up or maybe currently in your life. Certainly the stereotype of the, you know, hard ass in the boardroom who wants to have a whipped ass in the bedroom, that exists for a reason, and there's some validity to all of that. But I want to say that that's true of any human characteristic, and we don't necessarily need to interrogate those things. There could be some value from time to time in running these things to ground. If you find yourself watching TV and all of a sudden going, oh wow, I was not anticipating getting excited about that, then sure, you have just found out a new and interesting thing about yourself and have been presented with like a beautiful opportunity to explore your own psyche. And if you have the interest and the opportunity to do so, I am all for it. I mean, as a therapist, that's kind of what I do for a living, is to help people maybe recontextualize or explore these things within their own mind. But I want to be really careful about getting to this place where we say, oh, well, if they're into that, then they must have this problem. And I want to say that it's so much more complex than that. Human beings are so thoroughly multifactorial that for anybody to suggest that they know the reason, it is just silly. And that's true whether we are talking about our kinks or our fetishes or our pornography profiles or our movie interest or the type of music that we listen to or the type of food that we eat. Like, if you grew up eating a lot of Cajun food, it's probably not shocking that you still eat a lot of Cajun food. And oh, wow, okay, you're also really interested in Spanish food. There's probably a connection there. But I don't know that we need to agonize over these things or to really put a lot of pressure on ourselves to understand our sexuality in anything beyond what is just like functional and enjoyable. I'm sorry if that comes across as like a little bit of a lecture. I want to make space for the two of y'all to jump in and add anything else you might want to say here.
No, you're like, just because you two people are engaging in the same activity doesn't mean they came by it in the same way. Like 5 years ago, you could have talked to me and I would have known nothing about CGL relationships and pet owner relationships. And so to me, like I said earlier, these kind of relationships are a means to an end. It's to strengthen the relationship through these mechanisms. And so it just so happens to be, I am accidentally good at being a care dom. And a service top. So it's not like I seek it out. It's just that was the kind of relationship dynamic that worked, not just for me, but with me and a number of other people. And that's a completely different reason from why some other people might be involved with it. So I think it would be, as Christy said, not really fair to paint a broad brush over everything and to say that this definitely is because of some sort of psychological reason. Everybody's going to get into it for their own reason. And it pays to like treat them as individuals. What am I missing?
So I think with his question and like bringing up that he has this condition and that he thinks it's based off this condition, there's nothing wrong with what you're interested in. So having to find out where it's based from, like, it doesn't really matter because you like what you like and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame or embarrassment for having to have this root. Why am I like this? Because that's nothing. You like it because you like it and it makes you feel good. It makes you happy.
Yeah, I was just waiting until you guys finished up. I think part of the thing, I thought maybe there might be a little bit of miscommunication. I wasn't like saying anything in a negative way or anything like that. I was more going in like, it's just, I find, maybe the idea of where you might find some of the level of the source just to be a little bit fascinating. I'm just saying, I find it fascinating when I look at myself and everything, think about who, like, I accept who I am. I like what I'm into. And I know that a lot of aspects is just, you're just born with it. And sometimes these things just happen. But I think it's just, it could be just a little fun just to really look into, to think about, now what could have been like the domino effect that might have led me to fully be into this. And part of me just like kind of see some of the connecting dots in my life. And that's mostly what I'm just getting at. It's like, if you guys have, just had like, when you got into kink, you just had that question about, I wonder what might have been the domino effect that led me to realize this, and just, found it just for interest, just to explore to find almost sort of an answer, even though the biggest answer is just, it just happens,
And those things jump up every once in a while. I definitely believe that the scene in Aladdin where Jasmine is wearing a tube top and then all of a sudden pretends to be hypnotized by Jafar, I think that sort of like clicked something in a 5-year-old me that is kind of still working itself out. So like those things show up from time to time. And I think it can be really interesting. I just want to be super mindful that we are not trying to interrogate ourselves or to demand answers in ways that that might be kind of othering or condemning.
Oh yeah, no, I fully agree. Like, it's, I just like if I just ask if like you interested into like if you had the thought, but if you're not interested in saying it or if you feel uncomfortable about trying to give a reason, it's like, well, yeah, it's your own business and I respect your own business and everything. I'm personally, for me, I'm just someone who just feels very open up to just, if someone asks like, why are you into this? I feel like I just feel open up to say, I think I have these reasons and I can give that. But, that's my personal, position on how I would probably handle the events if someone asked me compared to probably someone else who would probably just say it's not your freaking business, which that's full respectful. And even speaking of which, I actually you just like the way you mentioned about the Jasmine, that kind of reminded me about when I was a kid. I was getting ready for school and my father just had the TV on, and I think there was on the TV there was I think it was like called Vampire. So it had like I think it was Kevin Bacon in it. And it was just and the first shot I saw was just literally a naked girl tied to a bed with duct tape on it. It was like, and that just was like the first click of, oh, that's actually kind of hot and everything. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for giving us a call today, Alex. I hope we gave you a little bit of insight.
Oh yeah. I just, it wasn't really much of a big question. It was just more of just for fun or something, just because this is actually the first time I called into this call-in show, and I thought here's something I could probably ask.
Much appreciated. I'm honored to be on your first call ever. Thank you so much for giving us a call.
Yes.
We have time for one more lightning round question here.
Yeah, I think we can do one quickly.
Let's do it. All right, we have Brutus, him from Minnesota.
Yep.
How you doing, Brutus?
I'm doing pretty good. My life's a bit chaotic. Had 2 breakups in like 4 months, but yeah, been a while since I called in. How are you doing, Christy?
Hey, not too bad. Glad to hear from you. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to point out how, biphobia is already a problem in and of itself, but biphobia and generalized homophobia towards men in particular has created a much bigger problem than even people who are more progressive, I think, realized. And there are 2 reasons for that. One of them is a little bit more obvious, and that is that it makes men much more uncomfortable with having emotional intimacy with other men. But the other thing is that, and I kind of thought, I kind of thought about this while I've had a lot of experience with non-monogamy, is that there is a lot of biphobia toward men. Like, if there's going to be a group sex situation, straight guys will be, a lot of us will just be like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want a bi guy to be there because he might check out my ass or something while I'm pounding away at whoever. And, but I noticed that straight women never seem to have that worry about women who are gynosexual. In fact, sometimes, like, I've seen straight women, like, at a club or at a party or something like that, dancing with someone who's known for being gynosexual, just kind of to either just in kind of the spirit of that kind of party atmosphere.
Yeah, I'll definitely just jump in and agree with you that that biphobia, especially, or biphobia perhaps particularly in like progressive or otherwise sex positive spaces, is a much bigger problem than people realize. We could do an entire episode about like one penis policies in polycules or some of these different things. And it is a really common issue. And I'm not entirely sure that I would feel comfortable trying to distill that down to one particular reason, other than to just say that homophobia is kind of the creepy little brother of misogyny. We live in a patriarchal society. And so I think that there's definitely a strong connection between all of those things. But Brutus, just being mindful of the time, did you have a short question or something that we could quickly address as we're starting to walk out the door here?
The other thing I wanted to add is just that I've noticed, and I even looked up a bunch of stuff about that, looking at the stats of different areas of the country, and that is under the age of 40, single men often drastically outnumber single women. And part of this is because I think a lot more women figure out that they're gynosexual and are more likely to pair off, whereas a lot of men, I think there are a lot of men who have no idea that they're androsexual, and I think that that's kind of created a lot of pressure on women because you have a lot of these guys you have a lot fewer guys who are pairing off because their entire lives it's been like, I ain't gay, no homo, and that kind of attitude. Even if you're a progressive, and even as an adult progressive, I still notice little bits of homophobia in me. And it's stupid, but you just get so conditioned because in the late 90s, it was almost like a witch hunt over, oh, you like that thing, you're gay, or
right.
You used to, or there's a video, or like one time when you were 3, you danced to a Cher song, so you must be gay.
Well, just a good reminder that we are, all of us who are listening to this program, existing in a culture that is thoroughly steeped in homophobia. So even if you yourself are feel as if you have gotten past those things, even if you yourself are gay, I want to just sort of alert folks to the fact that we all have a little bit of that in our bloodstream, just because it's in the air that we're breathing and in the water that we're drinking, and we all have sort of an active responsibility to be dismantling those things, not just in our culture, but also in ourselves. But with that, Brutus, we're actually just right here at the end of the show, so I'm going to give you the last word, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the night.
I'm just going to say between the male fear of male to male intimacy and the fact that there are a lot more women pairing off with each other than men pairing off, and that's causing a lot of stress on women in dating and a lot of stress on men and a lot of lonely ass guys as a result. That's one of the big things that is creating a mental health crisis with men, and we need to find some way to make bi and pansexual, just androsexual men not seem like weird deviants or something. Because until Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones, I had never seen like a bisexual or pansexual guy who wasn't like supposed to be some sort of extreme deviant that most guys wouldn't want to be.
Queer-coded villain or something like that. Yeah, no, there's certainly a lot of work to be done. So I appreciate you raising that issue and just particularly kind of mentioning the I think maybe the invisibility of biphobia, particularly in like more progressive spaces. So with that, thank you so much for giving us a call tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to highlight that a little bit. And I want to just kind of jump back into the interview as we're getting close to time here. And hear from you, Shade, about just whether or not you have some kind of just broad general tips and tricks for maybe getting started for folks who have been watching this and are maybe a little bit tickled or a little bit intrigued.
So there's actually some really good information out there just online through, I hate Google, but like through Google. Netflix also did a documentary on pet play and the furry, they did documentaries on furries. They also had that Kink show. I think they just called it Kink. That just had a new season come out, and they did some pup play in that as well. So it kind of shows you some of those dynamics. There's a particular website, initials FL, if you know, you know. They have a lot of
a recent episode about FetLife, so I'm hoping that our audience is at least vaguely aware.
Okay, I was told I couldn't say it, so I didn't want to say it. There's lots of writings about people's journeys about being pets and where they go from it, and lots of communities on that particular website. But where I find that most people get the information they need is actually from their lifestyle communities.
Yeah, well, fair to say. Are there any like specific books, websites, or resources? I know that in the show notes for this episode, I've got at least a couple of sort of primer links, but I wanted to see if there was anything in particular that you think is a good community or a good place for people to get connected and to investigate these things.
Actually, one of the like communities that I think has a lot of information, does a lot of education. is Austin Puppy Culture.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're not in Austin or anything like that, they do have people from all over the world that are part of that group, and they regularly have education and post educational links and things along those lines, and have
It's a good follow, like legitimately top shelf memes.
they're they're really good. That's probably one of my favorite groups that's out there online. So Austin Puppy Culture on Facebook, they're amazing.
Well, shout out World Pup Atlas. But beyond that, are there any final words that you'd like to leave the audience with tonight?
I don't have anything off the top of my head, but if you have questions or anything like that, you can reach out to me, or of course Pup Atlas with Austin Puppy Culture. He's a great resource, and it's a journey, and it's a fun journey, and it's take your time, do it how you want to do it, what makes you comfortable.
Well, fair to say. Where can people find out more about you online and maybe connect with with Pup Play Pride?
So I am specifically on Facebook and Instagram for Pet Play Pride TX. Under both of those, the email, of course, is on there with Gmail. Me, myself, and I, you can find me at Shade Wolf without the O on Instagram and Facebook. So if you want to reach out to me directly, you're more than welcome to, or you can reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram through the Pet Play group.
Yeah, and please do reach out to us, because there's no way that we could meaningfully cover such a huge topic in an hour and a half show. So thank you very much for sharing your links, and we're going to give you some ways to keep in touch with us also. First of all, to get in touch with the other shows on the ACA, we have all of our ACA shows in podcast format at tiny.cc/AEN podcast, where you can catch this and back episodes of Secular Sexuality, Atheist Experience, and all your favorite shows from the Atheist Experience Network. If you want to continue engaging with us, one great way is the Facebook Secular Sexuality fan group. You can get to that from tiny.cc/FBSSG. I'm a regular on there, so this is a great place to ask any more questions you have about this or any of the other topics you heard today, or maybe one that we didn't get to. You can also continue to engage with us at our Discord. That would be tiny.cc/ACD Discord. We're actually going to go there for a brief victory lap after party after this show. So if we didn't get to your question, you can go over there and ask it over there. And if you don't have enough secular sexuality in your life, you can get some merch. Go to tiny.cc/merchaca. I talk about it every week that I really want that pillow, and one of these days I'm just going to have to actually order it. I want that pillow right here in the background, right behind me, so you can see it every time I'm on any of the other shows that we're on. And finally, we would be remiss if we did not thank the fantastic crew working behind the scenes, so that all we have to do is sit here and look beautiful. Hello, crew. Thank you so much for everything you do. Oh, look at that. We get the big, right back at you. Big finger hearts all around.
Well, this has been a great time. I mean, Puck, you pointed it out. We're barely scratching the surface here. But I am so excited that we had this opportunity. And Shade, I said it before the show, but it really is true. This is one of those episodes. I think regular viewers have maybe heard me say this before, just a small number of times. But there was a whole list of episodes that we sat down and that we wrote out in like the first month of the show. And someday, oh, we have to talk about this. Oh, we have to talk about that. And this is one of those topics that we have just never found the right guest and have never really had the opportunity to properly explore. And I am just so tickled that we had somebody who was well-spoken and able to come on and share some of these ideas with us. So thank you so much for taking the time to introduce us to this community, to this idea and everything else. We are just so excited to be able to talk about the different ways that people love and fuck and connect and play and just all of the silliness therein.
Thank you all for having me. I'm honored. I'm really excited.
Well, and to that end, I guess it's that time of night where we encourage everybody watching to take a quiet moment for themselves, or maybe not so quiet, to maybe tap into some of those like animal urges and instincts, and to give themselves a big ol' orgasm, or better yet, give somebody else one.
Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.